What's up, everybody? So, got a bunch of stuff on the table that isn't in a box or put together. Look at my hand at a different angle. Whoa. Whoa. Okay, enough of that. All right, so we're gonna build this. This build is from pretty much everything is from Crazepony, Amazon seller, and a seller in general. So they sent me a bunch of this stuff, and then other stuff I purchased, and so props to Crazepony because they wanted me to do this. So the frame is from them, the ESCs are from them, flight controllers from them. I think that's about it. As far as this build, what I got from them in this build. But that being said, you can get everything from them to build this. The motors and some of the other components, the PDB, I got in other places. So let's go over what you need to have real quick. So you need to have a frame. That's number one. Motors, 4 of them, because this is a quadcopter. I believe that stands for 4. Yeah. ESCs, electronic speed controllers. You'll need 4 of those. You will need a power distribution board, like this one here. This is a spare. We're not using this one, but you'll need one of those. Zip ties. Let's see what else we got here. We got zip ties. We got a transmitter, or we got a receiver that is not in the box and is somewhere here. But you need a receiver, and you'll need a radio transmitter. There's a finished build. All right, so I got these nylon screw sets. This is a bunch of heat shrink tubing that is helpful and handy. You'll need a flight controller. This is a CC3D Mini, but a NAS 32 or whatever you want to use. Various tools. Definitely need a soldering iron and some solder. Do I have some solder? Wet sponge for your soldering iron. I have a servo tester here too, because I like to test the motors because, you know, I've had some issues and it's easier than going back and resoldering and all of that good stuff. So let me tell you, I did a little bit of prep work because this isn't going to be a step by step video, because that's crazy. I got this power distribution board, and it comes clean, no solder on it. So all I did was I prepped it, and I put a little bit of solder on all the points. So the corner points here are for the ESCs, and the middle 2 here are for the battery cable, which I have a XT60 plug already soldered to the board. And then this power distribution board is really cool because it has BECs already built into it. So this particular quad is going to run 4S LiPos. So the flight controller and the camera need a step down BEC, so they're built in. So I have a JST plug soldered to the 12 volt BEC, and I have a servo connector soldered to the 5 volt BEC. This will power your flight controller, and this will power your camera and your transmitter. So I pre-did those, you know. So if you wanted to see that, sorry, but I pre-did those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through soldering one of the ESCs, because I figure let's just, there's kind of 4 steps here, you know, because I got 4 motors and 4 ESCs. So I'll do one of the ESCs and the motors to the board, and we'll do a servo test, and then I'll do some editing, and then we'll have the next step, and we'll do the flight controller and stuff. So, oh, I did leave one ESC package so I could show you the sauce to prep it, and depending on what type of ESC you get, you'll have to maybe do more soldering or less soldering. These are one-shot ESCs, and the solder points are all in a row here. There are other ESCs where the solder points are vertical down the middle. So, and then they already have wires attached to them. So you can use banana plugs or the little plugs, so you can just plug in and out your motors to your ESCs. Or the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to directly wire the motor right to the ESC to save some weight and some space. And so, let's put this over here. See what kind of camera work we can get done here. All right. So to prep these, all I'm going to do is just put a little bit of solder on each one of these points, just so they're ready for when I connect the motors to them. All I'm going to do is just heat it up a little bit, and then just going to add some solder, and then stick it right there. Oh, some of that plastic came off. But you just want to get a nice little shiny point where you're soldering. You can see that. Right. So there, I just prepped it with a little solder, getting it ready for the motors. So you know, clockwise motor, counterclockwise motor, clockwise motor, counterclockwise motor. So I'm going to get a clockwise motor here, and so what I'm going to do is, since I'm directly wiring these to the ESC, I am just going to cut, let's see if you can see that. I'm just going to cut these wires, the motor wires, to the length that I want. So that's right about there is the length that I want, because that's where my ESC is going to sit. So you can do this any way you want. You can mount the motor on first, and then solder, or you can measure, or you can eyeball. It all depends on, you know, what you feel comfortable with, I suppose. So I'm just gonna eyeball these real quick and then cut them. All right. So now that I have my length for the motor, and since this is a clock, so on these brushless motors, there, you know, there's not really a clockwise and a counterclockwise motor. There's just the different left hand and right hand motor posts. They can spin either way. It all depends on how you wire it. So, you know, you don't have to worry about spinning it the opposite direction that it's supposed to be, when it's not really supposed to be any direction. So, to wire a I keep dropping this. To wire a clockwise motor, you're just gonna wire the wires straight across. And then for a counterclockwise, you want to reverse this set here. So you just cross them. like that. So, and that'll be a counterclockwise motor. So this one's clockwise, so we're just going to leave them all straight. Okay, I got a little bit of solder on the tips of the wires. So now I'm just gonna solder these onto each one. So if you guys can see that, I don't know. All right. So I basically just soldered the wires straight across to 1, 2, 3 to 1, 2, 3, basically. And then that's for a clockwise motor. So counterclockwise, these wires will be just switched around. So I will put some of that heat shrink tubing just around right here. You know, to cover that up and to protect it. A lot of people, and I should have, I just don't have it with me, but the hot glue is a very wise choice to put on the solder points. So now that I have this motor wired up, we're gonna mount it and then wire it to the power distribution board, and we're gonna see if it works. Alright guys, so I got the motor mounted here and it's soldered to the ESC. So now I'm just gonna clip these wires down to size. These are the power wires that are gonna go into the power distribution board right here on the corner, two slots there. So let's get them cut and soldered. Alright, so I put a little bit of solder on the ends of the wires, and now I'm just going to solder them right into the corner there. And most power distribution boards have a, you know, plus and minus everywhere you need it, so pretty easy. ESC is kind of mounted. The motor's mounted. It's soldered to the power distribution board. Let's check and make sure the ESC and the motor is all working correctly. We should hear a sound, ESC beep, if everything works. And we did. We also have lights on the power distribution board with for the BEC there, so we know the power is working. So good to know. All right, so this goes into your flight controller. So that cord's just going to hang out while we do the rest of the motors. So what I'm going to do is just fast forward through all of that, and once we get to all of the motors, we'll do the next step, which is the flight controller and the receiver, and we'll see if it works. All right, so be back in a flash. What up, everybody? So alright, so last night I did that video really late at night, and what we got done was we did the soldering on the ESCs. So we soldered the ESCs to the motors to the ESCs actually, and then the ESCs to the power distribution board under here that we have mounted, and then I mounted the CC3D board on a plate above it. And now what we're going to do is set up the receiver, and then we're going to go through the step-by-step on the software for the CC3D Open Pilot software. So this is the receiver I'm going to use for now. I have a different receiver and Tyrannus coming, so this will be swapped out next week. So, but this is what I'm going to use. I'm going to bind it to the Devo 7. So you get a set of plugs with your CC3D. So this part goes into the flight controller, and then these plugs go into the receiver. So the way it goes is literally like 1, 2, 3. This first, let's see, where is it? This one. It's all tangled. Okay. So this one that has the 3 plugs, that's going to be number 1, and then they go in order. Color there. Get it to focus there. Come on. Okay, there we go. So the colors, so it just goes, so the first one would in this receiver. This one's labeled elevator, aileron, throttle, and stuff. Other ones that you get will be labeled, if you're using this type, will be labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you have a Tyrannus, it'll just be 1 plug, so that's much better. So what you're going to do is just plug the first one into the top here, into the elevator, and then you're just going to go one by one. So the next color is the blue one here. Separate that. Put it in the next slot and literally just go in order. Alright, so once you're all plugged in there, you can go ahead and plug this into your flight controller. Should be on this side. So I've already bound this to the Devo. The binding processes are all different. This one, you just press a little button until it blinks and then unplug the battery. There's a process for this one. If you guys have questions, if you have a Devo or something, I can let you know how to do it. But I wanted to make sure I got it all done before, you know, I was on camera and got frustrated. So anyway, so now that we have these hooked up, I'm not going to mount this until after we go through the programming, just in case I plugged in a cord into the wrong one. So I'm just going to kind of leave that hanging. All right.